There's two markers in everybody's business as it relates to revenue. There's one marker where you're the most profitable annual revenue, and then there is a plateau marker. And today you're going to learn the differences between those two and maybe help you decide which one you want to land at.
Yeah, so if you're a home service business or a pressure washing business, the principles that are covered today with our friend Sid Graef is going to help you dial in the decision-making process of, do you really want to scale? And do you understand the cost of scaling over time? And it might be to your best interest from a profitability standpoint to not grow the business. Maybe hit a certain spot and learn how to maximize your revenue over time. And so if you've been contemplating, should I scale? Or should I end up hitting this profitability standpoint? Make sure you listen to our podcast today.
Yeah, it sounds a little counterintuitive, but there's realities to revenue, and we're going to jump into that right now on this episode.
Let's go.
Ooh, good afternoon, gentlemen.
Sid?
Nice to see you.
Yeah, man. Nice to see you too. It's been a few weeks since you've been on the show, right?
Yeah, it hasn't been that long.
Yeah, we try to have you about every 2 weeks.
Oh, perfect. Good cadence.
Sid, we've been in a purpose conversation on being a purpose-driven business for several months now. And now we've transitioned into being like a profitable and purpose-driven pressure washing business. And I'm going to throw a curveball. I want you to imagine, you're watching The Sandlot again. You might actually be in the Sandlot movie. You've got a wiffle ball bat in front of you, and you've got what kind of ball would that be? What, a wiffle ball. Yeah, a wiffle ball coming your way. And this dude threw a nasty knuckleball. It is all over the place. That is the question that I'm about to propose to you. Purpose and profits. Which has been the most challenging for you to attain over the course of your pressure washing business?
Okay, that's worth unpacking. I would say it's more profit has been the bigger challenge to attain. And if we want to go way back in time, when I first started it was 1993 in Florida, I was very clear on my purpose. My purpose, I was running a small home fellowship. I was a lay pastor, and I really loved helping people. So my purpose, somebody asked me once, they're like, what does church work have to do with window cleaning and power washing? And I just said, I help people see the world more clearly.
Boom, roasted immediately.
Yeah. And that was it. And so but I struggled for money, but I was clear on wanted to help people. And I would do the things like probably you guys have done, a lot of the listeners, like when I go in someone's house or I'm at someone's house, like I'll pray for them. I'll pray for their family, pray for whoever is there. When I do commercial work, like I pray for that. Like I had a deep-seated belief, and I still do, that God would prosper a company because they hired me to do work for them. Because if you're God's man, God's going to bless everything around you. So that was my purpose. When we started our window cleaning operation in Montana, my purpose was I almost said a little less noble. It was different. My purpose was, I have to provide for my family, and I know this works. So I didn't lose sight of my delight in God and praying for people and stuff, but I didn't spend a lot of time. Like I wasn't witnessing to people. I wasn't speaking the word to them when I was doing the work. If it came up, I didn't hesitate, but I didn't go out of my way. I just wanted to do a great job. It's still my desire that whatever I do would honor God and help people. But literally my purpose was provide for my family. And it was really strange. A couple of years ago, our youngest son moved to Los Angeles. And I realized with my wife, when we had this conversation, I'm like our kids are grown, like they're out of the house. My company has served its purpose. I don't know what to do with it. So I've had a 2-year struggle on that. Now what with that particular company? Like it did what I intended it to do.
Wow. How interesting is that statement? You're in that mentality as we speak for the last 2 years?
Yeah.
Interesting. And wow, that's a change of pace.
Curveball back at you.
Yeah, that's like, I really would actually love to unpack this. This is a great conversation.
Yeah,
You
but
have an immediate question?
yeah,
We'll get
dude.
to it. We're going to get to some profits and stuff, but I'm like, how are you processing all of that?
Yeah.
That's a big deal, man. Been in this business since 93, and you're like, hey, it did what it was supposed to do. That's a huge deal.
Yeah. I've been reading a book. I don't know if you've read it. I would recommend it to you. It's called Dedication on Leadership. Have you read this book? It was written by a communist for over 20 years. And he came out of communism and then does training on dedication and leadership as if you're a communist. And so he teaches the principles that communists teach in order to attract and create purpose inside the minds of whoever is connected to their, yeah. And then if they ever lose or leave communism and don't find something to move to, there is depression that ensues, and they never reconnect to a sense of purpose, even though they knew that communism was a regime that they were working for that didn't get the desired outcomes that is probably great for humanity.
Mhm.
And so I would encourage you to process, to think through it, because the idea behind it is that you have to find something to have purpose inside of, or you'll not, for the business, or you need, I mean, ultimately you've got to figure out the answer to your next steps, because if you don't, you're going to constantly go through this lost sense of self-worth, value. What am I doing with my life?
Mhm.
And he tells the stories of friends who, even though they didn't know what to do next, they would go back and say, man, the good old days when we used to do blah, blah, blah. So they would remanufacture something that wasn't true just to give themselves something to hold on to. And
Wow.
believing in working for, whether it be Hitler or whether it be for Russia or whether it be for you name it, believing a lie at least gave a sense of purpose, and they were never able to move towards something else. But if you can find something else that gives you a new sense of purpose, that ends up,
It's just your next step.
it is like flame on, but you have to find it.
So where are you at in the processing part of this, Sid?
Yeah. So there are two parts to that. One avenue is, one part of it is like, what do I do with the business? Like, I would be probably happy to sell it and move on and do other things, but it's also an established business, and it runs well, and it provides opportunity for a lot of young men and women. And so I was like, I would like to develop that greater, not for the purpose of providing for my family, but to make it like a youth leadership training type of program. It's like a work study program. So that's got its own purpose. My gig or next iteration is primarily with teaching and facilitating and speaking. And those are things that I really get thrilled doing. Josh, you know, so we've been at the mastermind. I facilitate that every quarter, and I absolutely love that. It's a lot of mental and emotional energy to guide a room full of people for a whole day. But I'm just like, I'm jacked when I do that. When I have the opportunity to coordinate and MC large events like the huge convention, like that fills me with energy. It really jazzes me. So I go, all right, how do I, get where get more of that work, get more of that purpose. The other part of that is the teaching aspect. Like, I do love to teach, and I love to share stories. Generally, it's in a Socratic way where I want to help guide people to come to their own conclusion, but hopefully at a higher level. So I've got two things going on, and that's, from the word, you man can't serve two masters. So I am in a struggle right now. You go, how much time and energy can I commit to my business to help it develop so it is self-managing? It's probably 80% self-managing now. Like, I wouldn't hesitate to take 2 weeks off, and I wouldn't worry about it. I've got a team in place that can handle it, but it would slow down and not grow. So I want to get the last couple of components in place so it can continue to self-perpetuate. And then on the other end, with the teaching and things like that, it generally, like, when you lean into something, doors open. We'll put it that way.
I want to take a break from the show to tell you something that we have been working on. It's kind of like the cat out of the bag. It has been a dream for Brady and I to be able to create a store that you can go to and get everything that you need to start and scale a pressure washing company. And so one of the problems that you run into is you don't always know who to trust, who to buy from, what coaching to take, how much to price jobs for, and also getting coaching to continue to grow throughout the year. Well, we've created a one-stop shop called mysoftwashstore.com, where you can get video courses, you can get whatever kind of training that you're needing,
access to relationships we have.
Yeah, different marketing tools that we utilize, from CRMs to nice jobs, different partners. But also it gives you our relationships with our chemicals, our equipment, our supplies. You can order it all right through one spot. And then we also have continual training that we can offer you if you're trying to scale to multiple $1 million inside your own pressure washing company.
Yeah, so the simple thing you need to do is just go visit mysoftwashstore.com, browse around, and click anything you want to.
Have you heard of the book Halftime, Bob Buford? All right, don't get it. Don't look at it. I'm going to end up sending it to you as a gift. But it is a phenomenal, pivotal book for the conversation that we're having. But Bob Buford he's no longer with us, but he is a legend in helping people transition from what you just said to what they're next going. But I don't want you to get it because I want to be able to gift it to you. And so,
let me just affirm you really quickly too, man. You are so the man for the job as it relates to emceeing any situation. Shameless plug for the huge convention. If you guys out there are watching and you didn't go this year, make it a point to go next year. The friendships that you develop, the things that you learn, and getting to observe great speakers like Sid Graef MC something out of this world. You are the man for that position. You really are.
That's so good. Yeah. And I'll affirm you as well. You're in your giftings, when you're in that position, I feel like you are in your superpower.
Absolutely.
And then also think of you're a sage from the stage. And so I feel like
I love that.
Through the experiences you've had in life, your next step is influence and impacting guys like me that, are in the game. They're trying to learn, what does it look like to continue to grow and to scale and be a purpose-driven and profit-driven business, which is what we're trying to talk about. And we're getting inside of this purpose-driven conversation. Yeah. But let's do this. I do want to offer value to anybody that's listening, that's trying to figure out, how do I start and scale a profitable pressure washing business? So when you look back over the course of your 21 years, what has been a handful of things that you've done to take your business from surviving to thriving as it relates to increasing the profitabilities over time?
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you.
No, you get somebody doing it like the floss dance or something in the corner.
Right. My son is on top of a table right now,
swinging the chandelier just back and forth like a goofball, man.
That's a moment in time.
That's so funny. Okay, go ahead. Ask your question again.
All right.
Make sure that your son gets to watch some old Errol Flynn movies, the old swashbuckling pirates.
I feel like he should not watch that.
Yeah.
I look at him, see him banging the thing with the thing. All right. So Sid, I've started a business. I'm looking at scaling it where I'm able to make more money or profitability in my company. Over the course of 21 years, where has your aha moments been that you have to change blank in order to see more profits inside your company?
Ah, cool. There probably there've definitely been 3 or 4 big shifts that have contributed to that. First one was, so I grew up farm boy. And all we heard growing up, my grandfather was a great man. And he's like, son, make a hand. You got to earn your money's worth. Like, that was the rule. It was the Protestant work ethic. And your identity was tied closely to how hard you work. And like an 8-hour day wasn't enough. 12-hour day, maybe. Like, that was how you proved your worthiness on the farm, right? How hard could you work? And so I took that right into business. So when I started, it wasn't a business. It was me with a hustle. It was just a guy, like, I owned my own job. And really my goal when my kids were little was I need to make enough to provide for the family, but I want to be able to control my schedule so I can be at the Little League game. I can do all the stuff. Now, I worked desperately long hours, and it probably wasn't wise. I had a deep-seated belief that you have to do everything yourself. If you want it done right, you do it yourself. Good work is hard to, or good help is hard to find. All the classic, probably erroneous beliefs for growing and sustaining a business. But at the beginning, it was just as I learned my craft, the main thing was like, if you're a solo operator, get your craft dialed in so that you can maximize your money. Like go from, if your production rate is 200 an hour, figure out how to get to 300 an hour and book more work, because you can make a good living working by yourself. And then figure out the things that you're not good at, or that you don't have time for, or things you just don't like, and hire somebody to do them. And it could be, you could hire your kid to do it, your spouse could do it, your neighbor could do it, an outsourcer, elance worker. That's probably not even a site anymore. What's it now? Upwork, Fiverr, find a VA that can answer the phone, outsource to Jill's office, any of those things. So for me, like in the beginning or in the early years, like I didn't answer the phone because I was too busy working, which meant money was going in the toilet because people weren't, they called you for work and you didn't answer. So they moved on. I hated paperwork and I did a terrible job of it. So I found somebody to handle my bookkeeping and to file all the paperwork. And then I had somebody answer the phone. And if I wanted to like do the keep it small and keep it all, that's where I would stop. We're like, I would sell and clean. Somebody else could answer the phone and schedule and clean up the mess with the paperwork. And you could easily make net 150, maybe 150,000 or more just doing that working by yourself. That's enough. The second thing I did, so I'm going to zip to our current company. We're in Montana. We started with a hustle and grind. 6 years in, I had 600 repeat customers, 600 clients that we served at least once a year. And that was it. So that's pretty easy. I've been adding 100 customers a year for 6 years. The winter times are desperately cold and slow in Montana. So I dedicated a winter to studying marketing because I didn't really, like, I understand people, hard work, being good, integrity, but I didn't know anything about marketing other than tell a lot of people what you do. And I've studied, I found Dan Kennedy, I found Frank Kern, I found a lot of, classic copywriters, and not Jay Abraham, he's the guy that did the guerrilla marketing series and, like just bootstrap marketing. And I was like, oh man, this is amazing. I developed a marketing plan. I said, I'm launching this in March. And I launched and I went hard. We added 1,200 customers in 6 months, which was double what we had done in the previous 6 years. And it almost put me out of business. I almost killed everybody that worked for me and myself because we had so much business, couldn't keep up, didn't have systems, didn't know that. But we got a lot of new customers and some of it was profitable. Now, not having systems in place to handle growth is an equally large mistake. Yeah. But so I back up. First was work hard and optimize whatever you're really good at. If you want to develop it from your solo operation to a business, learn how to market and learn how to sell and make sure that you have systems for production, because all of these things, you can teeter-totter it, find that it's going to balance. It's going to go too far this way. I got too much work, not enough people. I got too many employees and not enough work. It goes like that, but you can scale it together. Figure out how you're going to train people. If you're the technician in the field, you already know what to do. You just haven't written it down. It's all in your head. Like write down, like, here's my 6-step process for taking a new guy from ignorant to competent, not expert, but competent. And just make it like invest the time with a new guy and teach them how to do it right. Don't just say, hop in the truck. We're going to go. I'll show you what we do as we go. It's not enough because it's anecdotal and you'll leave gaps. And then you'll send them on a job and they'll see something they haven't encountered that is very normal, but they just have never seen it. And then you have a problem and you're back in the, you have to go fix all that. So you asked a basic question, but there are layers. There were layers for me. Optimize self. I didn't raise my prices for a long time because I just said, I will get better and I will therefore increase my productivity, which is my raise. Now that was pretty limited thinking because I could have done both, but I got faster, made more money. Yay me. Then I took things off my plate. The things that weren't producing revenue, they were just managing revenue. So then I could produce more. Yay, more profit, more money. And then we started turning into a business. So I learned to market so I could have enough business for my employees. And I learned to hire so I could have enough employees for my business. And that's where we still are. It's just at a bigger scale. And it's interesting in that, and there are plenty of guys you can talk to that have more insight, more information, better handle on this. But there are revenue plateaus and there are revenue sweet spots in no man's land. Example, when we were doing 700,000 a year revenue, we were incredibly profitable. That was our most profitable year. When we went to 1.1 million, we were almost lost money going over $1 million. But
and would you consider that to be the sign of a plateau?
It could be a plateau in our case. It could be like your revenue growth. If you say your revenue growth is going like this, like if it's steady, your infrastructure growth is going like a stair step. And sometimes it's close to the revenue, and sometimes there's a big gap where it's just profitable. It's close. Here's the thing. When you're at $1 million, you need more management. You need more leadership on your team. So you need an operations manager and a production manager and an office manager. So that gives you a lot of overhead. You're paying yourself a salary. You're not in the field anymore. But then when you scale, but you have to have that to grow and scale, because otherwise your bottleneck is you plus your production manager and your team. You're like, you can go so far with that. Maybe it's $1 million, maybe it's 2 million, but if you still want to grow, you're going to go, this is our entire capacity and we're stuck. So you have to you've got to get your leadership in place before you can grow, or it's not sustainable.
Do you have any management in your company that is fully removed from the field and not doing any revenue generating behaviors? And I'm talking about direct revenue generating behaviors, doing jobs.
Yeah, like production generating.
Sure.
Revenue generating. Yeah. Our office manager and operations manager and myself, like never in the field. All we do is like sell, close, manage, orchestrate, train, that kind of stuff. Our production manager is 50-50. Like he's the guy that if somebody calls in sick, like today, they take off their manager hat and grab a kit and get out in the field and pick up a day. Yeah. So we've got some guys, they don't generate revenue. They just help the trains run on time.
When do you know it's time to pull the trigger on that?
Probably when you lose all your hair. Something like that. Like we all know our capacity, but I think most of us believe we have more capacity than we do. But when you get real honest and you like, if you start tracking your time and you're like, and my wife is loving and beautiful at this. And she's like, you're working 12-hour days again. I'm like, what? I'm not working 12-hour days. Like I go to the warehouse till 9. I'm finished by 3. And she's like, you're on your computer at 7 a.m. You're making phone calls at 7:30 or 8. You've got a meeting over here. You're doing a thing. You're like, yeah. And then we have dinner and we chat for an hour. And she's like, and she quotes me. She's like, I just had to write a few things down before I go home to bed. And then you're 3 hours in your office. You're working 12-hour days. And this was 2 weeks ago. This is not 2 years ago.
You know what? I'm sad to say this to you. That's a little encouraging to me to know that even you are also in that phase a little bit. And I think it goes in cycles too.
It does go in cycles. And of course, you guys know, I run the 80-20 podcast, and it's about application of the 80-20 principle to your business, to your life, so that it's like 20% of the stuff that you do moves the needle 80%. And 80% of the stuff you do is basically worthless. It's the finishing 20%. So you could get rid of 80% of the stuff that you do and still get 80% of the results you're currently getting. Like you would free up so much time. I teach it and I do it. My challenge that I have yet to overcome is when I clear off my plate and I get a lot of free space, I just fill it with the next level of stuff. And it's so I'm not out in the field. I'm not fixing stuff. I'm not maintaining the vehicles. I'm not making other phone calls, but I'm doing like what's next. So they call it delegate and elevate. So I keep doing that, but then I keep filling my time. I've failed to delegate, elevate, and keep some free space. And it's a challenge. And my wife is very understanding, but also very quick to point it out.
Sid, as we're in flight, learning how to be profitable, do you ever look at your P&Ls?
I do.
Once a month, once a quarter, once a year?
Probably every other month now. And typically I cry. Like they frustrate me.
Yeah, that's why we don't look at them.
I know.
Yeah, just so you know, you can throw those in the garbage.
So when I get somebody really good, there are a couple people that have done this for me. They'll do not just like, here's your P&L, but a P&L analysis or an actual analysis of your numbers. And then it looks like magic. Then it's like, oh my gosh, I see where the gaps are. I understand why, what the levers are I need to pull. But I don't do that often. That's like an every once a year type of thing. And I get really excited and really tuned in for about 6 weeks. And then I forget.
Do you know this question, the answer to this question? What is the most amount of money you've ever made inside of your pressure washing company? And why did you make so much money that year?
Is that a net question?
Yeah, your wife was like, baby, you brought home the gold. Are you printing money in the basement? Like, she doesn't know where it's coming from.
Yeah. That was the year, our revenue was between 7 and 750. Like we had a very profitable year. Here's some of the reasons. One, we were lean as hell. It was like we had a production manager by name, but he was really one of the techs he was a lead tech helping manage the team. And I was the production manager and I was the operation manager. And we had a part-time office person that was running stuff, but I was doing most of the admin type of stuff. So here's the reality now. So I've got you can adjust for the market you're in. Our production manager base salary is 42 grand. Our operations base is 68. So that's 112K, right? So if I took over those two positions, I would add 112K to my net bottom line. I would be exhausted, but that would work. So that's basically what our money looks like now. If I took my salary, their salary, and our net profit and put together, it was like, hey, there's $250,000 in the bank. That's pretty sweet, unless you're dead because you're so tired.
Right.
Like if you're wearing it out, there's nothing else. So that's where we were at 750. But now, we carry a bigger admin load.
Yeah, I think anybody that's listening to this really needs to understand that chances are you're never going to be more profitable from a percentage base when you're the solopreneur and you're doing a lot of the work, but you'll also be kind of exhausted
and probably capped out
doing all the work. But if you keep it small and you grow it and you're selling and you're cleaning it, you're making a good amount of money and you're not eating ramen noodles and baking your own beans, that you're soaking in water for half a day. And,
yeah.
But you know what? It works. I love beans.
And ramen's very good.
Ramen's good.
Hey, I want you to think for a second about the best pieces of advice that someone has ever given you that you applied to your business.
Number one, this is going to sound so dumb because it's so basic. I had a good friend in Florida when we first started. I was struggling. This guy ran an ad agency. He drove a Ferrari. When Humvees came out, he bought one. Like he was doing very well and he understood business. And I said, Bill, you got to give me some advice. Like I've got this little power washing business and, I was in Pinellas County, Florida. I'm like, give me some advice to help me succeed. And he said, show up. I'm like, God, I hate you. I'm like, give me some real advice. He said, you want to be the best in the marketplace, show up on time. That's all you need to do to beat everybody else. And I'm like, I was really ticked off at him. And he's like, you think I'm joking? He said, call 4 plumbers and tell them you got an issue and have them make an appointment. He's like, if one of them shows up in the same week they made an appointment, it'll be a miracle.
100% true.
Yeah. And I was like, you're kidding. He's like, if you're showing up on time and doing what you said you'll do, like you don't have a problem, a business problem. Now, after that is like, well, I got that down. So I realized, I was stepping ahead of the marketplace and making money. Then it would the issue was change, raise your prices. It was like pricing strategy and marketing to fill your calendar. But that was the best advice. Now,
that's good.
Thank you for sharing that. In a second.
There's a second piece of advice. We used to have a conference. I'm like really um, foreshadowing. I want to bring this back into the marketplace. There was a small church that used to do an annual get together, and they called it Word in Business. And they would that's what it was. It was God's word applied to business. And I went one year and I was like, I never knew how much business stuff was in the Bible. And I'll start with like the parable of the sower and the seed. Sower goes out to sow. He's throwing out the seed. What do you do if you want to grow a garden? You got to plant. You want a lot of tomatoes? Guess what you plant? A lot of tomato seeds. Like it's not rocket science, but we forget in business world. So, but then it's like you throw out the seeds, and he's like, they fell into 4 or 5 categories. Said some of them landed on stony ground and they sprang up really quick, but then they dried. They didn't have any root. They died. Some, the birds got them, and some, they threw them and the weeds choked them out. And then he gives the illustration like this is what that means. Da, 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 da. But some fell on like fertile ground, and they brought forth 30-fold, 60-fold, 100-fold. And that's all you're looking for. You're like in 2 Corinthians 9 says, if you sow abundantly, you reap abundantly. If you sow sparingly, you reap sparingly. And I think that's a big miss for most business owners is we just forget, but it's like the Bible principle. So that was my big aha. And the big advice was like, if you want abundance, you've got to sow abundantly. You got to plant a lot of seeds, and some of them won't grow. Don't get so attached to them, but the ones that do grow, they're going to flourish. So that was my second biggest advice, and that's where I spend a lot of time in my business.
Hey, I want to thank you for taking time to listen to our podcast. We're going to break from the show for a second, and I've just got a simple question for you. Are you looking to start a pressure washing company? If so, I want to invite you to a free webinar that we do for anyone that's wanting to know everything they need to know before making a decision in starting a pressure washing company.
Yeah, sometimes thinking about jumping out on your own, you get analysis paralysis, and this free webinar will really help you with that. And there's no strings attached. It's totally free. All you've got to do is visit pressurewashingpastor.com, click start here, fill out the paperwork, and we'll take care of the rest.
Yeah, I hope to see you in the future. Now back to your show.
Can I tell you a goofy story?
Please do.
A goofy story. So we moved to Montana. I won't give you all the backstory, but we got here. We broke as a joke. This is the mac and cheese story that I told at the convention. It is a true story. So we were destitute. We're 80,000 in the hole. We're like up against bankruptcy. My wife was pregnant with our 4th child. And we got nothing. And I started to hustle. I started the window cleaning company. Well, I had a neighbor that lived across the alley that in my mind was rich. But he was a super nice guy. We used to, like, we were working in yards. We'd see each other. We'd talk, Steve. And I knew that he was on the board of a nonprofit in Missoula. He was the vice president of the Missoula Children's Theater. And one of my sons, we dropped him off for an after school program at Missoula Children's Theater. It was free, or I wouldn't have been able to afford it. Right. But I noticed we walked in, they had this beautiful building. It was only a few years old, and the windows were filthy. And I was like, I don't have money, but I've got time and I got skill, and I want to do something to contribute because I loved what they're doing for kids. So I asked Steve, I'm like, Steve, who do I need to talk to over there? I want to donate the window cleaning at the theater. And he's like, oh, dude, come. We've got a board meeting next Tuesday. Will you come with me? I'll introduce you. I'm like, yeah. So go introduce. And I told them what I wanted to do. And they're like, well, what? Of course. We'd love for you to like donate something to the cause. Next day, one of the ladies who was on the board, who's a prominent realtor in town, called me and said, Sid, Missoula needs more people like you that want to give. And I would like for you to come to our real estate office and like do a 10-minute talk when we do our Tuesday morning muster. So they had 80 to 100 agents. It's like, I want you to come and talk to them. And you got 10 minutes. I'm like, I don't know. What do you want me to talk about? Because I'd done some public speaking. I wasn't a stranger to it. But she's like, I don't care. Tell them Clean Windows sells more houses. I don't care. So I was like, awesome. Show up. I brought them all donuts, and I made some handout cards that were I turned it into a comedy routine. The comedy routine, that's where I came up with the term squeegeology. I said, I'm not a window cleaner. I'm a squeegeologist. This requires, 6 years of studying the masters and blah, blah, blah. And on the back, it had like the 10 top benefits of having my company clean your windows. And they ranged from peace of mind to a better sex life to a better golf game. Like I just made all kinds of stuff up and just threw them out. And I was like, I'm not saying this is going to happen for you, but people have told me after having the wins. So I did that. So fast forward 5 years, I did a genealogy of my company. I was like, where do my customers come from? So I kind of made a family tree. Turned out 5 years later, almost 50% of every client I had came from Karen Kimple Jones at the Missoula Children's Theater, and that connection and her asking me to come speak. So that was one seed that brought forth 1,000-fold. And I wasn't giving to get anything out of it. I just wanted to help people. And I think the purity of that, leans right back into that 2 Corinthians 9, where God loves a cheerful giver. I wasn't trying to get something in return, but man, did God bless me back in a big way.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, it almost seems like your purpose has fueled your profits over the course of your career inside of pressure washing, and really you're transitioning the next stage of your life to say, what purpose is going to fuel the future profits? And profits can range from, we get to determine what profits are. Profitability doesn't have to be income. It can be impact. And I feel like you've shared with us basically a life on display that's trying to make an impact. And as you've done that, you've been able to make an income. As we land the plane, you said that in 1 year, or at least the first 2 quarters, you were able to hit 1,200 customers in a very short amount of time.
Yes.
Can you just give a basic, let's call this markenology for dummies?
Markenology, yeah.
How you did that?
Yeah, and I will say half of what I did, I would steer people away from it in the biggest way. Like, it was a disaster, but it generated a lot of new clients. So I'll do that one first. So this is a cautionary tale. I did something similar to Groupon, and we put it. They used to run that in the local newspaper when that was relevant. And what it was, like, you give away, you're like, here's $100 of window cleaning, but they only pay $50. But the Groupon people get to keep half of that. I get the other. So that means I'm cleaning 100 for $25, which is a terrible idea. That's a 75% discount. But guess what? It's not hard to sell a good service at half price. So what happened was I set it up, and they ran it over a 3-day weekend. I thought, well, forget 30 of these. And I had a very specific plan of like what to do with those clients, how to upsell them, how to retain them, how to make it, like, multiple visits a year and all that stuff to make them profitable. So I considered this a lost leader. If we get 30, they're like, turn it off. Well, it was a 3-day weekend, and we sold like 180 of those. And I was like, oh my God, I'm on the hook. I have to deliver all these. I have to honor that. Then we bought a company. A friend of mine went out. He decided he was going to move out of town. He's got a little window cleaning and power washing business. He runs solo. He's like, you want to buy this? And we discussed it, and I bought it. Well, part of the purchase price was accepting the liability of the 200 of those coupons he had sold. So now I've got 380 clients, new customers, that at a 75% discount. Guess what? That's horrible. Like, that's hard to recover. So I would go, never offer a big discount for any reason in God's green acre. Because here's what happens. Even though we did honor it, we served them all for 2 years until people stopped calling. And like, there are probably 50 that just never redeemed it. Thank goodness. But they were 90% of those people were the wrong type of customer. They were coupon shoppers. They were price shoppers. They were never loyal to my company. They were loyal to the cheapest price they could get. It was a disaster. But you can get a lot of customers. So when people complain about the $99 guy, I'm like, let them have at it. Like, we need that guy.
You just spoke so much wisdom and encouragement into me. I had a guy last week pitch me the same concept. He's building we have a town we live in here called Hendersonville, and it's going to be like, it's like Deals of Hendersonville or something. Yeah. And not only did we have to offer like 40% off our services, but I had to pay him $500 to get started and $500 a month. And I was like, dude, are you doing the math on this with me? And I asked it in a room publicly.
Yeah.
And everyone in the room was like, yeah, dude, do you not like they made me feel stupid? And then I was like, well, okay, wait, maybe I am and I'm not. It's a total loss.
All right. So we have reached the end of our allotted time together. And I want to land the plane with this. I love the podcast founders. I don't know if you enjoy it. I know you've made some comments inside of a Slack channel that we did. And the biggest walkaway is that those who end up making massive income and impact are ones that have two common traits that are pretty much connected in each founder. And it's going to blow your brains. It's going to absolutely change the way that you see things. It's these two things, Sid: common sense and thinking. If you can combine common sense and thinking for yourself, you can be an absolute game changer inside of almost any industry, because most people on the planet, they don't think for themselves and they don't use common sense when they make decisions. I'm not suggesting you didn't make common sense or you weren't thinking. I'm just saying, if we think for ourselves, we're more likely to be able to make good decisions and say, no, I don't think I want that shot. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen yet. Let's think about it before we make big decisions. And then let's use common sense along the way. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, let's say that we have someone that has another mastermind or has a event that they need a speaker. If they wanted to find you somewhere, how can they get in contact with you?
Would LinkedIn, Sid Graef, and Facebook, Sid Graef. And I check them both faithfully, maybe once a month. So don't expect a quick reply, but I will get back in touch with you.
At the same time, you're crying about your P&Ls, you're checking your Facebook account. I get it.
Sid, you're always a pleasure and a joy. I'd love to have you on in the future. We're going to do From the Other Side with our spouses in the future. And so if that's something you'd be up for and your spouse would be like, you know what, I'll try it. And we want to hear the story from their side as it relates to sacrifice and who we've become over the course of our journey. I think we need to tell those stories because sometimes we don't know. Our spouses can tell the story better than we can. I think that's what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a fantastic idea and approach. And those kind of stories and encouragement from the spouse need to be heard because, like you guys know, generally speaking, your spouse, your wife, is the one that's kept the sanity and the stability while you're the wild and crazy entrepreneurial dream chaser.
While we're eating Ruth Chris, she's at the house eating ramen. Hey, Sid, love you. We'll see you in the future. Peace.
All right. Great to see you guys. Thanks.
Love you, my friend.